You know something's wrong when you see big EPA trucks sitting down there.
TCE drops down into the soil and into the groundwater.
The families that are building homes, they're digging wells. Their kids are drinking poisoned water.
We've been drinking the water for 6.5 years.
It has been shown to cause cancer.
My neighbor next door had cancer. My husband had bladder cancer.
We moved here to make a better life for our family.
Really, at this point, all we can do is just pray.
Poisoned water in Wake Forest. Hello, everyone. I'm Pam Salisbury. My co-anchor, Penn Holderness, is standing by with that story, as you can see. But first, we head over to Chief Meteorologist Wes Hohenstein, who's tracking Hurricane Sandy.
Pam, Sandy crashed into Cuba this morning at 1:30 with 115-mile-per-hour winds, and it continues to head north, marching up the east coast. Here is the very latest from the National Hurricane Center. Winds down to 105 miles per hour, moving north at 20. Still a very strong hurricane, already seen outer rain bands and power outages in South Florida. Not too many changes in the forecast track today, but remember, this storm is 1,500 miles wide, so small changes at this point will not affect us all that much, but it is going to take a little bit of a right turn. We have rain and wind in the forecast Saturday and Sunday. We'll talk about the timing of that in just a few minutes. Penn?
Wes, thank you. You saw off the opening of the show some really frustrated folks here in northern Wake County. It has affected this community, a real problem that NBC-17 uncovered last month. Poisonous water in homes across the state. And tonight our mission is to give you comprehensive coverage of this problem. We're going to show you just how big a health risk it is. We're going to show you how it could have been prevented by focusing on one particular Wake County community where our investigation started. Take a look at where we are right now. We're in Wake Forest along Stony Hill Road. Here it is on a map, and you can see sort of the contamination spread right there. Now, drive through this neighborhood during the day, you can see beautiful homes. You might call them dream homes. But for a lot of these families, this has been a nightmare ever since they learned a cancer-causing chemical that you're going to hear a lot about called TCE was in their drinking water. Now, we've invited those families into the home right behind us, the Hamilton's home. They're going to watch the story. As you watch the story, we're going to give you their instant reaction when we are done with the story. And one other thing I can tell you, in my 6 years here at NBC-17, this is by far the most comprehensive investigation I've ever witnessed. It started and it continues with our own Charlotte Huffman. I've seen the pages of notes. I've seen the phone calls. I've heard the phone calls. You have poured your life into this, and it is clear that you really care about it.
Well, it's one of those stories that you live and breathe, really, Penn. And the more that I dug into it, the more families that I met, the more I realized that something has to be done. Now, we at NBC-17 hope that what you're about to see is a game changer, because for these families that you're about to meet, this isn't a story. This is reality.
It makes me feel horrible.
A mother's heartache. Michelle Hamilton learned she'd been poisoning her own kids and didn't even know it.
I remember where we were when we got the phone call. We were on vacation this summer with our family.
Neighbors Monica Stonefield and Frances Kuda got the same call.
Of course, we were frightened, scared.
I was very nervous, you know. I think anybody would be.
It was the EPA calling because there was something in their water.
They said don't drink in it, bathe in it, or nothing in it.
That something was a carcinogen, trichloroethylene, or TCE. Within days, the EPA set up an emergency command post. Cases of water on doorsteps became a familiar sight. And the EPA called a community meeting to explain what neighbors had been drinking for years.
Based upon animal studies, we know that it has the ability to do harm.
At NC State's labs, toxicologists tell us TCE is a chemical that cleaning industries have used for years to remove grease. It's cheap, highly effective, and very toxic.
It causes neurological problems. It has been shown to cause cancer.
I have gotten cysts.
Lung cancer.
The cysts are very large.
Leukemia.
There's a lot of them.
Breast cancer.
In this left breast.
Like Parkinson's disease.
I have gotten, boy, watch me forget what I've got to say to you. Parkinson's.
Doctors haven't confirmed it, but Frances Kuda thinks she knows exactly what made her and her neighbor sick. TCE.
She had breast cancer. She was a lovely person. She was in her 50s.
This is a story that really begins about 10 years ago right here. Inside this shed is where they used TCE to clean circuit boards. Check this out. This is the hole where the TCE came out of the building and straight onto the ground. About 3 years later, the TCE showed up in a well at the house right next door.
At the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Charlotte Jesnick's division took the case.
It looked to be that the contamination was confined to that well.
So in 2005, Diener moved on.
Is it reasonable to assume that this stuff would spread?
Absolutely.
Environmental engineer Jim Haley says TCE sinks because it's heavier than water. Same story underground. TCE sinks into the soil and over time spreads through the water table and into nearby wells.
And that's when we really start seeing problems with groundwater and drinking water contamination.
You and I both know that this stuff sinks and it spreads. That's not hard to figure out.
There were higher risk sites that were on the radar at that time.
Basically, it was kind of like cross your fingers and hope it doesn't spread. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Until we discovered the greater extent of contamination at the site, yes.
While Diener took its eyes off the problem brewing underground, above ground, this quiet neighborhood became a booming residential community. And families settled down.
We moved here to make a better life for our family.
Did Diener ever notify you guys that there might be a cause for concern?
Never, never.
No, nothing at all.
I don't remember any notice.
No, nothing.
No, they never told us.
To find out what Diener knew but failed to tell neighbors, we obtained 800 pages from Diener's files. Inside, we found dozens of red flags, including a 2-page summary sent from Diener staff to senior managers saying there are other wells along Stony Hill Road that should be sampled to check their status. The date? 2008. And that same year, this letter, where Diener admits they don't know how big the problem really is because the extent of the contamination has not been defined. And there was Larry Kusan, an engineer.
It just piqued my interest.
Kusan learned someone had dumped TCE into the ground years ago, so he ran some numbers.
I wanted to make sure that my family wasn't in trouble. Our home is about a mile away from that location. So I sent some emails out.
In 2008, he wrote Diener and the governor's office, "It is the cost to human health that is of greatest concern," and demanded this must be addressed, or it will result in harm to some residents, current and future. But Diener admits those warnings just sat in their files for years.
So, missed opportunity.
It wasn't until 6 years after TCE was discovered that Diener alerted neighbors, asking residents this June if they would like their wells sampled.
That's not good enough. You bring somebody up in uniform, in a vehicle that you really know represents them and say, "Excuse me, there's an emergency, I need to test your water."
But by then, it was too late. Water tests proved the damage was done. Underground, the TCE spread from the source, covering 500 acres and contaminating the wells of 21 families, like the Stonefields.
I'm furious. I'm very upset about it. The state knew about it in 2005. We bought this land in 2007, built a house on it in 2008, and our kids have been drinking the water for over 4 years now. And no one notified us there was even the possibility that the water could be contaminated.
We have a finite amount of resources.
There are 80 people that work for this department. You're telling me not one of them could pick up the phone and call these families that were building houses and digging wells?
If we had all the resources in the world, it would be a fantastic thing to do, but with the resources we're given, we have to work on the highest risk known problems first.
Their kids are drinking poisoned water for 6 years. It's because they just weren't high enough on the priority list?
Again, we have to work on the highest risk sites, and we had sites where people actually had detections in their water supply wells or living on contaminated soils. Those are higher priorities than people living near a contaminated site.
I don't care about funding. All I care about is somebody starts doing their job in the world.
Your job is to protect public health. In this case, do you think that you did that?
In this case, it was not our highest priority.
And now this community can only wonder
what happened to the family for all those years when we were drinking that water. We drank it daily. I drank a lot, maybe 6 or 7 glasses of this size each day. It's a lot of poison to put in your body for all those years.
Here, and a lot of them are behind us, and we're going to hear from them in just a second. But, you know, you mentioned kids a lot. Kids drinking the water. TCE affects children, the elderly, more than others, and so you understand the frustrations.
Absolutely.
Now, you have been looking to get answers and helping out with those frustrations. You've talked to the feds. You've talked to the state. You have talked to Wake County.
Yeah, we have, and just today, Wake County really took notice, holding a press conference. The reason, though, well, we'll let you hear that for yourself.
Oddly enough, the very same day that we are airing our investigation, you guys decide to call a press conference. Can you explain your timing? Is this just coincidence?
I don't know why you would think that we're in the shadows.
Our question was not answered when we tried again.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I'm going to have to end it there. That's all.
I need to talk to these folks and see if they have more time because they only allowed 1 hour on their schedule.
And with that, the panel left the room to talk behind closed doors. 5 minutes later, they returned to give the media more time.
So, Charlotte, you had a question that was pending.
Could you please explain to me the timing of this press conference?
And we know that you're doing your meeting in the neighborhood this evening. Yes, we want to be able to respond and get the information out to residents.
And we're going to have a whole lot more on exactly what this is costing you, the taxpayer, coming up in just a little bit.
Also, right now, Charlotte and I are going to unplug and head inside to the Hamiltons' home behind us. A lot of folks who are affected by this TCE have been watching the show. We're going to have their instant reaction coming right up.
It will cause probably heartache every time any medical issues come up. Thinking back, was it caused by the exposure? Was it not?
We're back here live in the living room of the Hamiltons' home, and we've gathered a lot of neighbors here, all those people that are very affected by this water contamination story. So first off, you guys just saw this story. By a show of hands, how many of you guys were, say, angered by something that you saw? Yeah, just about everybody. Brad Hamilton, let me start with you. Give me 2 words that kind of describe how you felt watching that story.
Very angry. That I could, you know, I don't know what to say. My boys are right here, and hopefully we're going to be okay.
And you've explained to the kids that there's something wrong with the water. How exactly do you explain that to kids?
I don't. I don't know. I don't know.
Guys over here, when I first watched the story and I saw the plate, do you know what I'm talking about? The TCE burning. What was your reaction when you saw that?
I wanted to vomit. It made me absolutely nauseous watching that plate burn, knowing that that possibly could be in my kids' stomachs.
Yeah. What about over here? I just want to get quick reactions from all you guys from what you saw.
Just very scared. It's very scary and heartbreaking that someone wouldn't want for their families what they would want for ours.
And you guys are all talking about families. TCE is, like a lot of things, it affects children, affects the elderly more than others.
Yeah, it's scary, and I think after watching that, I would add frustrated. Sure. Because now you see backstory as to how long they've known, and we just weren't high priority.
Charlotte, we're hearing a lot of anger, we're hearing a lot of frustration. Also, when we walked in the door, we heard a round of applause. It wasn't for me, it was for Charlotte, for all the hard work that you did. Well, and I know a lot of people are appreciative of all that you've uncovered.
Well, I appreciate that, you guys, but this is a story that you guys have been living. It's a story maybe for the media, but for you guys, it's your lives. Frank Kuda, we saw a lot of in that piece. Tell me a little bit about how you're feeling after watching that.
Well, the same as I felt when we first talked, yeah. You feel that why were we not important enough? Why were we pushed? Why were we hidden under the rug, whatever you want to call it? Was somewhere else more important than us? I didn't understand.
All right, Frank Kuda, thank you guys, everybody, for your time.
And want you all to know, and those of you at home to know, there's a lot more stories in here. This story has just started here at NBC-17. We're going to be listening to a lot of what they have to say tonight, and as the days move on, as Charlotte continues this investigation. We're going to send it back now to meteorologist Wes Hohenstein with the other big story tonight, Sandy.
All right, Penn, thank you very much. Great job out there. You know, great job for everyone today. If you were outside enjoying our third 80-degree day in a row, it's hard to imagine, number one, how much colder it's going to be next week, and number two, that there is a Category 2 hurricane in the Bahamas that is going to head parallel north up the East Coast. If you missed it earlier, it made landfall in Cuba. 1:30 this morning with 115-mile-per-hour winds. It's over the Bahamas now with 105-mile-per-hour winds. Florida, more than 5,000 people already without power, and the rain bands have arrived there. For us, it'll be a mild evening in the upper 60s in the next few hours. Out the door tomorrow morning, a few more clouds, maybe some fog, and temperatures in the mid-50s, a far cry from the low 40s we had earlier this week. Of course, this week has been dominated by high pressure, but remember, a hurricane and a cold front all going to converge on the East Coast. It's been a very challenging forecast. You know there have been a lot of changes. There's a lot at work here. Number one, cold front's going to come through, but more importantly, the jet stream is going to come down out of Canada, and with it comes a lot of cold air. Remember, the jet stream controls a lot of the weather. So the jet stream and our old friend high pressure that's moving away are going to help steer this hurricane. So there's a little bulge in the jet stream right here along the Carolinas. I'll exaggerate it right there. That's going to push it out to the right a little. But this high pressure is going to push it right back into the United States and New England, and that's why they're going to have such a mess of weather. And the National Hurricane Center official forecast kind of matches that. There's that little right turn out, and then that turn back to the left, keeping it as a Category 1 hurricane off the North Carolina coast. So we'll have some effects. Let's talk about the rain. Well, let's talk about the clouds first of all, because we'll say goodbye to the sun tomorrow, and our coastline tomorrow might see a few showers. We have a 20% chance of rain tomorrow night, as we might see a few leftover rain showers. But the heavier bands start to arrive along the coast Saturday morning. And remember, the cutoff of rain with the tropical system is very drastic. We think the I-95 corridor, the second half of Saturday and early Sunday morning, will get the bulk of the rain. And then as we get into late Saturday and early Sunday, the system starts to pull away just a little bit. And remember, Sunday morning, things will start to improve there. But remember, we also have a cold front, and that's what's going to drop our temperatures as we get into next week. So here's what we have in a nutshell. Some clouds tomorrow, the rain and wind Saturday night and Sunday morning for central North Carolina, the cold front Sunday, and look at the 7-day forecast after some rain from Sandy this weekend. Highs in the 50s next week, lows in the 30s. It is going to be a chilly Halloween. Pam?
What a weekend. All right. Thank you, Wes. A community is mourning tonight the loss of a boy hit and killed this morning in Harnett County. It happened while Adam Kemp was trying to board his school bus. Police say a man driving a van hit him, even though the stop arm was indeed extended. Kemp's mother is now pleading for other drivers to be careful.
Pay attention to the school buses. That's why they stop. They have the arms out there, because the little kids are crossing the streets. They get hurt or they get dead. They don't need to be. They're senseless.
Senseless, she says. Troopers charge Fernando Ortiz Soto with felony death by motor vehicle. Another crackdown on that pharmacy linked to a deadly meningitis outbreak. The FDA is now recalling all sterile products made by the New England Compounding Clinic since May. There are 9 clinics, 9 in our area, that bought products from that facility. 24 people have died from the fungal meningitis strain, including 1 person in North Carolina. All right, poison water in Wake Forest. Just how widespread the problem really is when we come back.
So there are hundreds of sites that we need to get to.
We're back with our special report on poison water in North Carolina. We've been focusing on one community in Wake Forest, but Charlotte, your exhaustive investigation uncovered a lot bigger problem.
Yeah, this whole problem spans so much further than just this one community. I want to take a look at a map that we got from the state, from Diener. During our investigation, we learned that the state has about 2,000 sites where they know there's contamination. Now, about 90% of those sites are believed to have TCE contamination. contamination.
Yeah, just how contaminated, how toxic are these homes?
Well, that's the thing, Penn, is that the state doesn't really know. They have 2,000 sites, like we just mentioned. They've got about 600 where they know that the contamination has made its way into the water. But as for the other 1,400, they don't know. All they know is that there is contamination, but whether or not they've made it out to the neighborhood to check to see if it's made its way into the water has yet to be seen. And this neighborhood is a perfect example of that because, you know, back in 2005, we knew that there was contamination nearby. But it wasn't until about 7 years later that the state made it back out here and found out, sure enough, it had spread into the water.
We're talking 7 years from knowing about it to checking it. So now, even after all this, how far behind is the state in checking these sites?
Well, they still have about 1,400 sites where they need to do more work. They don't know what's going on there. And get this, the state knows that TCE spreads in all of them because that's what TCE is. It sinks into the ground. It's messy. Once it gets underground, it moves.
And it has moved not too far away from here. I want to show you a case in point of just how widespread this is. During our investigation last week, TCE showed up in the wells about 2 miles north from here in a brand new community called Mangum Estates in both neighborhoods. In fact, these were new homes, and Wake County still gave permits to these places.
Right. Wake County tests new wells for several things, but one thing that they do not test is for VOCs. That stands for volatile organic compounds. A lot of people think that their new wells are tested for this stuff, but it's not. So there is legislation, but it's been to require counties to check for this stuff, but it's really been held up for several years. So here's what you need to do. You can either sit around and wait for these guys to do something about it, to get out and check your wells, or you can take matters into your own hands. You can go onto our website, NBC-17.com. That's where we've got a story that's called Testing Your Wells for Contamination. And you can find out if your home is one of those contaminated sites, and if it is, what exactly to do next.
Charlotte, thank you. We're coming right back. We're going to be back here tonight at 11. What's in store for that?
Well, we're going to talk to several lawmakers that are inside right now. Also, even if you're not on well water, this is still your problem. We're going to talk about how much taxpayers are spending to clean up this mess.
Poison in your water, it has really affected this community. The families you see behind us, you heard from some parents who are worried about their children. We're going to answer all those questions and more tonight.
We'll see you then.